In this video, we're going to use OpenAI's ChatGPT model to query a database and to ask it a question that is sort of a more general modeling question that is going to be a little bit vague, and we're going to see how it does. We've all been impressed by how ChatGPT is able to respond to questions and have this a very conversational style and be creative in writing. But here we're focusing on its ability to analyze data. And I know Code Interpreter plugin is not widely available yet. I think that's going to be very interesting when it comes out of alpha. But in the meantime, there is a way to query data sets using OpenAI's ChatGPT by using something called Langchain platform. So Langchain is a framework that allows us to ask a question of the data, and then behind the scenes it interfaces with a large language model and sort of goes back and forth to try and answer that question. So without further ado, let's dive into it. I'm trying to keep this video short, so I'm not going to explain a bunch of things, but you know, I'll just mention that this is not terribly difficult. You do need an OpenAI key to do, but you can install Langchain and OpenAI. There are some dependencies here, and here we are connecting to a SQL database. So that's what I wanted to test here, and then I'm asking it the question that give me the best three models to predict the number of rings in the abalone dataset. Give me detailed performance metrics and rank these three models. Okay, so this is sort of a very non-technical question that I'm asking. I'm not giving it a lot of detail. I'm not giving it a lot of direction. So this is something that somebody maybe who doesn't know data science or coding might be interested in. Let's say they have a data set. In this case, I'm using a popular data sciences data set of abalones. It has some characteristics of these mollusks in there, that, you know, their weight, their dimensions, and using that, can you predict how old the abalones are by looking at the number of rings that are on the shells? Okay, so that's the problem. So this is all I'm asking it. So this is the question, and then what does it do? So what the Langchain framework does is it starts by some action. So here it's saying the list of database tables. It can see behind the scenes that there are two tables in my database. Okay, so as opposed to Code Interpreter where you're uploading a CSV file, so just, you know, one table that you're uploading, here it's interesting that I'm not really telling it what table, I'm just asking it a question. So behind the scenes it's trying to figure out what tables are there. And although in this example I'm not trying to do any relational stuff, but that in another video that'll be a neat thing to explore, that can it automatically do joins, which I know it can because I tried it, so it's actually pretty impressive. It can do joins between tables to figure out what it needs. Sometimes, okay, sometimes that works. But anyway, it's still impressive nonetheless. So here it figures out that, okay, I should check. So here's the thought it's having. If these models can have thoughts, so the thought it's having is I should check the schema of this table and see what columns I can use, okay, to answer the question I asked it. Okay, so here it's checking the schema, and I have all these columns in here, and then it's taking the top three rows from the table, and then what's the next thought it has? So once again, the question I asked it was, give me the three models to predict the number of rings in the abalone dataset. Okay, so there is that column called rings, so that's what it should be modeling. So the thought it has is that I should query this table for the three best models to predict the number of rings along with their performance metrics. And then the action it takes is kind of strange. It says, give me the top three rows from the data set. And then it thinks that it knows the final answer. And the final answer is that the best three models to predict the number of rings are, I think, essentially the top three rows of data. And that's what it outputs in the end. So clearly it didn't really work in this case. I did ask it a very high level question. Maybe it would work better if I give it more detail. Maybe I said something like the dependent variable is rings, fit a logistic regression or something, or regression model, and figure it out. But I wanted to ask a non-technical, something that a non-technical person might ask. And it didn't really work, but it's still interesting to see how this Langchain plus OpenAI combination tackles some of these questions. I'll be posting in the future maybe some examples where it does work well, but clearly it doesn't work in every case. But another interesting thought I had was, well, what if we, instead of using this framework of Langchain, we use something like Bing Chat, so Microsoft's Bing Chat, and I sort of I play the role of the Langchain and sort of give it more of a detailed question. So here's the prompt I gave in Bing Chat. Once again, a pretty general prompt. Now Bing Chat doesn't connect to my database, so it can't really sort of go and see what data is there, so I have to tell it. So here I say, I have a table with the column names below. Please write a Python script that gives me the best 3 models to predict the number of rings in this data set. Give me detailed performance metrics and rank these 3 models, and then I give it the table schema. Okay, so the thing that Langchain did as a first step, I basically give it to Bing Chat to get it going, and then it gives me a response. It says, here's a Python script that I wrote to give you the best 3 models. Use scikit-learn, pandas. It also did split training and validation. It selected on its own that the mean absolute error is the metric, and then it also helpfully tells me that the lower mean absolute error means better performance. And then it gave me this output. Okay, so all of this code I did not edit, except that here, in order to load the data, it said to load the abalone.csv, which I don't have, so I had to write this code up above to basically load the data and then just reference that down here. So that's the only thing I changed. And it's pretty interesting that in the code, it automatically knew to change that this one variable will have male and female in it, that it should change that to numeric values before running its model. So that's pretty interesting. And then it once again splits the data into training and testing. That's great. And then it chooses some models to run, and then it has loops in there, and then it gives the answer. The best 3 models are random forest with the lowest mean absolute error, then gradient boosting, then linear regression. So this is very impressive that something like Microsoft's Bing Chat, which does use ChatGPT 4, I believe, was able to take this prompt, pretty non-technical, vague, I'm just giving it my table schema in it, and asking it to do a somewhat complex data science kind of an analysis, where I'm asking it to create these models, and it wrote all this code that worked on the first try and worked well. So that's it. That was a video. In the future, I'll probably post something where the Langchain is very impressive, so I don't want to undermine that here, but it's sort of it didn't work in this case, so I'll post another video where it does work well. But in the meantime, while we're waiting on Code Interpreter to become more widely available, something like Microsoft's Bing Chat can be used pretty effectively if you give it enough of a prompt that it can do some interesting things with data, and maybe even more complicated things than the one that I tried here, and that I'll be very interested in trying in the future as well. Thank you for watching. If you have ideas about things to try, things that might be interesting, please comment below, and see you in a future video.